Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot coming with the weekly comic roundup. We've already covered this week's X-Men and Avengers books. Now we're moving on to this week's Spider-Man books and Empyre tie-ins. Kicking things off with Ghost Spider, number 10. Where we left off, Gwen Stacy of Earth 65 had just teamed up with the newly returned from who knows where, Susan and Johnny Storm of Earth 65. As it turns out, both had superpowers. Johnny having flame powers and Susan having invisibility powers. However, the siblings did not have Gwen's best interests in mind. So, we begin after the the drug bust that the Storms and Spider-Gwen helped out with or not Spider, Ghost Spider. And Ghost Spider talking with the police and, mugging for a selfie with one of them and swinging away. She returns home. And after the argument that her and her father had about about Kamala's Law and Honor 616, the two did have an argument in the previous issue. And, well, not everything is entirely normal between them. They continue their argument, and they do somewhat continue their argument. And, suffice to say, they also talk about Gwen's activities and the Storms, and Captain Stacy does bring up a good point with the fact that while the Storms are running around showing off their powers right off the bat, Gwen didn't do that. Though she is curious as to what happened to them while they were missing, and her father says that whatever happened, he's sure they have a good reason for keeping it to themselves. And if not, she'll figure it out, because, well, she's smart and she knows what she's doing. Which brings us to the secret history of Sue and Johnny Storm. So, 5 years previously, the Storm siblings ended up in Latveria as guests of Dr. Victor Von Doom, who promptly killed their assistant and put them through physical training. Also banned the return of their phones. Sue decided that as wolves exist, she would find a way to become one. Though Johnny wasn't entirely sure about this, he was more than willing to follow his sister. And, of course, Dr. Doom schooled them in the ways of evil, in the use of their powers, until they killed Doom. However, they couldn't just kill Doom and say, yep, Doom's dead. No. Sue took his place. It's easy to impersonate someone in a suit of full armor it's fully armored from head to toe. No one knows if it's really that person inside or not. And so, back in the present, Gwen is still thinking over her talk with her dad when she gets a text from Sue. Meeting her and Johnny at a billboard, and Sue just breaks it to her real quick. Real quick, real easy. They need for Gwen to leave New York. Sue puts a bubble around Gwen's head to potentially at least begin to suffocate her, and gets close enough for the symbiote to react. As remember, Gwen's suit is a symbiote. Johnny manages to scare Gwen off with his flame powers. But they go on, and it turns out that Gwen is able to survive the attempted suffocation thanks to the symbiote. Basically, okay, her head's covered. The symbiote's still breathing. And they continue their fight. But then the storms explain it. They came back to New York to be heroes. But New York's not big enough for the storms and Gwen. So they make a proposal to her. Since they already have a social media presence, they get to protect the city. And Gwen basically just goes away. Or at least stops being Ghost Spider. They've also edited a video to basically state that that Ghost Spider has been working with the Man-Wolf gang all along, and that Ghost Spider, an ex-felon, is in fact still a criminal. And if she does it, she opts not only will they release the video, but they'll also go after all of her friends and family and kill them. So, Ghost Spider returns home, tells her father what happened. Well, and she's going to give in. She's going to let them be New York's protectors, and she's going to focus on her studies. And her dad's going to have to watch them because she can't. And she's going to be gone for a little while. She also lets MJ know that she's taking a break from the band for interdimensional stuff. She'll be back as soon as she can be. She also apparently told Reed, and also asked if, someone from the MJs could, check with the bodega on 28th and 7th, see if anyone's turning a lost hamster. And she'll be back as soon as she can be. And she has a plan, and she knows what she's doing. She will be coming home. And that is where the issue, as well as, sadly, the series, comes to its end. That said, it has been confirmed that Gwen will be popping up, the Ghost Spider will be popping up on occasion, at least in Amazing Spider-Man. Though that's not a title I'm currently following, because reasons. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on to Spider-Man Noir, number 3. Where we left off, Spider-Man Noir and Huma had made their way to Berlin, eventually, only to find Huma's mentor, Dr. Heinrich Hellstrom, dead, and to be promptly attacked by Electro. So the issue begins with Electro's attack happening. And, well, he's kind of got the upper hand. And Spider-Man is trying to get things turned out how he wants, but he's hoping for that twist when everything turns out just the right way. And it arrives in the form of Peter and Huma's pilot Harry entering with someone else and tossing in a satchel full of explosives, which Electro catches. Harry's counterpart then detonates the explosives. However, Electro escapes. And so, Harry's companion begins to escort the group to a place where they can basically make new plans from safely. Electro is with his employer, however, and he's not happy. However, he also explains that as the dangers increased, so has his cut. His cut is no longer 50-50. His cut is now 60-40. And of course, Harry's companion turns out to be this Earth's Tony Stark. Or maybe Harold Stark. But given the fact that we got Peter Parker, it would probably be Tony. He runs a speakeasy underneath an eyeglass shop. Underneath the speakeasy is seems to be an intelligence listening post. Giving Peter, Huma, and Harry basically their next destination, Istanbul. Stark and Peter talk a bit as they make their way, with basic plans being explained along. Meet with Checkpoint Red in Istanbul. And the Russians will take care of getting them to where they need to go. Along the way to Istanbul, however, there's a storm. Lots of sleet, which makes it harder for Harry to fly the plane. Also, some sudden lightning, though Electro's not there attacking. However, the sleet on the wings has frozen them in place, so Peter gets out of the plane, uses web shooters to pull the flaps up, and they're able to get over the Matterhorn. The group arrive in Istanbul and meet with Checkpoint Red, who, though she never gives her name, it's very clear that it's Natasha Romanoff. And they're told they're going to have to go to the 6th excavation of Uruk. They'll make their way by a caravan. 30 hours on a camel apparently is not fun. The last 8 was actually something to behold. Peter explained in his inner monologue, "Not on the Levant. It's kind of quiet that makes everything else seem like Times Square on New Year's Eve." So they arrive at the dig. However, Peter's spider sense is going off. And they're cornered by Nazis. Explain that the Checkpoint Red explains that they're field archaeologists from the Metropolitan Museum of New York, and she has all the necessary papers. And then her and Peter basically take down the Nazis. However, there's still one Nazi they didn't account for. Huma, who has picked up a discarded Luger and put the barrel at the side of Peter's head. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to Empyre Avengers #3. Where we left off. Okay. In the Mexico front. On the Mexico front. The Korean Skrulls are both. It turns out a lot of the Korean Skrulls in the force that's been sent down don't entirely believe in the alliance lasting, and that soon enough each side will basically go back to their own war. In the Savage Land, Shanna the She-Devil has been freed from the Kotati influence. However, Khazar has been run through by the Ebony Blade. And in New York, Plant Man has definitively decided that he is on the side of the Kotati, and he is beginning a plant infestation attack on New York City, with Vision, Luke Cage, and Dr. Nemesis standing in his way. So we begin basically retelling the history between Khazar and Shanna. As both Shanna and Khazar and Shanna's son react to the very clearly mortal wound that Khazar has just received. In Manhattan, Vision, Luke Cage, and Dr. Nemesis are doing what they can against Plant Man and his plant constructs, and yeah, it actually does kind of seem to be doing something of a trick. When the attack, when they do manage to succeed in the attack, Vision attempts to contact Black Panther with an update. However, communication with Wakanda is inactive for some reason. In Mexico, Mockingbird, Wonder Man, and Quicksilver are trying to basically get the Kree and Skrulls back on the same side. And, well, thankfully Quicksilver has recovered his stamina and is able to promptly take out quite a few of the Kree and Skrull troops. And Quicksilver also picks up all their weapons and dumps them in the Gulf of California. In the Savage Land, the strike team consisting of Black Knight, Scarlet Witch, Brother Voodoo, with the addition of Man-Thing, are doing what they can against the Kotati. Shanna uses the power she has from the Savage Land itself to attack the Kotati back. However, Scarlet Witch notices that, yeah, that wound of Khazar's is pretty bad, and maybe they need Brother Voodoo to return to his body, as he's currently controlling Man-Thing. As the Ebony Blade does most certainly contain Khazar's soul. But Brother Voodoo mentions that, yeah, sure, they could probably put the soul back in his body, but if the body's too far gone, there's nowhere to put the soul. So Shanna takes Khazar's body to the same waters that imbued her with the spirit of the Savage Land and saved her, hoping that maybe they can save him. The Kotati try to turn the tide, And Khazar is resurrected and his soul placed back in his body. And one of the Kotati explained, hey, we still outnumber the humans here. We can take them. But Khazar mentions that explains that the Kotati just tried to steal the spirit of the Savage Land. The jungle now senses the danger that the Kotati pose and is ready to defend itself accordingly. Bear in mind, the Savage Land is home to lots and lots of dinosaurs. Yes, actual dinosaurs. Not grown in a lab dinosaurs. I mean, dinosaurs who were able to survive what happened and stayed and didn't evolve into something more. So, afterwards, the battle is won. Everyone's happy. Black Knight thanks Man Thing for the assist, and offers, we could probably use your help with however Man Thing kind of shambles away, and without even acknowledging that Black Knight's talking to him. But it's explained that the plant energy that they learned for the Man Thing has already made its way back. That the Kotati learned about has made its way to Koi, and is fuel for the invasion. So Scarlet Witch tries to contact Black Panther and gets Shuri, who says, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, please come help, as she fears that Black Panther is already dead, and as Wakanda is under siege. That is where the issue, as well as the miniseries, comes to its conclusion. I kind of like and don't like that with the shortened release schedule for Empyre and its tie-ins, that Empyre number 5 didn't come out this week, and that instead Empyre Cap and Empyre Avengers came out this week instead of last week. Speaking of Empyre Captain America, we now move on to Empyre Captain America number 3. Where we'd left off, Shikanth, one of the Kotati priests, had created a man of the earth and was basically directing it to Mexico City. Meanwhile, Cap had managed to had drawn a handful of U.S. troops to his side, and also managed to convince NATO to back him on this, and so, and even more so, he got the some of the Kree Skrull forces to sign on. Though the Kree Skrull forces, they're not exactly. They figure, they can sacrifice themselves, and we'll just finish up, and So, the issue begins in Mexico City. Plants are growing, the man of the earth is on its way, and the Kotati are attacking. Shikanth is monologuing because, well, bad guy. And the Kree, Skrull, and human forces are arriving. Human forces touch down while the Kree Skrull bombers will deal with the Man of Earth. But the Kotati are, they're not an easy foe. Some of Cap's troops get injured, but they also realize they've got a good, there's something they can use to their advantage: fire. So they blow up a bunch of cars and to make a perimeter and additional perimeters. The Kree Skrull ships attack the Man of Earth, and they heard it. but they don't stop it. And in fact, one of the bombers is simply crushed in the Manaverse's hand as it makes its way to the city. The plan being that it's going to make its way to a fault line and cause a massive disaster. So, Cap realizes that She-Conth is controlling it, so he gets it. He's told where She-Conth is, and, well, goes after She-Conth, finding him on the Manaverse's shoulder. And so, Cap and She-Conth duke it out, and he realizes something. It's not She-Conth's power that has created the Manaverse. It is rather the scepter he holds. And so, as vines begin to wrap themselves around Cap, he throws his shield at the scepter and breaks it. Dissolving the Manaverse and causing She-Conth to seemingly fall to his death. The next day, going through the rubble, Cap is found among the survivors, and turns out NATO headquarters has been trying to get a hold of Cap for hours. Something big is happening in Wakanda. That is where the issue, as well as this tie-in miniseries, comes to its end. Which then brings us to not a miniseries tie-in or a one-shot tie-in, but rather X-Men number 11. Where we left off, it seems as though the Kotati attack are one of the theaters of the Kotati attack is on the moon. And then while it's been suggested that they leave Krakoa alone, well, it seemed like that suggestion kind of turned into a, hey, guess we got to go out to this place called Krakoa. So the issue begins on the Arakko point. 3 of the new X-Men, Enole, Rockslide, and Loa, are going through, and apparently Enole has seen Summoner. Summoner welcomes them, and they talk to him, and explains he's playing a game. It's easy. It's a game that one can play by oneself, but it can also be played with others. It's a game about weakness. So, Rockslide decides he'll play. And so, he's handed a piece, and a piece of stone, which turns into an avatar of himself. Summoner explains that once the game begins, it does not stop until it ends. And he apparently has many a meal this way. Rocklide's told to choose a piece, then place the piece anywhere on the board, and as with life, where you begin has little to do with where you will end. All the moves are yours and can take you wherever you choose, or more importantly, where fate demands. However, there's something in the sky. And Summoner sees it and says, that's curious. We then get a report to the Quiet Council from the Captain Commander. First off, it's set up into a handful of sections, including a redacted portion. First off, we have asymmetrical warfare, for the eyes of the Council only. This is a brief overview of our recent Captain's Quorum, but what should be of particular interest to you are our recommendations regarding enhanced techniques in combat scenarios for mutants with combat experience. These proposals come with 0 reservations and have the full support of the Quorum. Research and expansion in this area has our highest recommendation. Quorum notes. Island readiness. Following the recent incursion of Krakoan space, the Quorum's position is that our existing dome of protected space should be expanded through a series of encircling chain islands. We can construct these ourselves and moor them to Krakoa at selected intervals, but we first want to check with Cypher to see if the island can, and is willing to, do this itself. Mutant training. We know that we're trying to create an atmosphere that is serene and non-militaristic, but Bishop has been cataloging the amount of actual training being done on Danger Island in the Atlantic archipelago, and the numbers are much lower than expected. The Krakoan population is clocking in at less than 2%. We aren't suggesting that everyone be required to become proficient in hand-to-hand combat using their powers in an aggressive fashion, but the consensus here is that we could do a little more. Archipelago access. Following the suggestion of the Council, we created an escape plan based on tiered evacuations and have had the mutant island telepath request to seed this information into the minds of all Krakoans. We consulted with Monet regarding extra island X-Corp employee procedures, and she also recommended patching this into the language dump for any new mutants arriving to the island and into all resurrection protocols. Redacted portion is on Omega level mutants, and finally, we have enhanced combat techniques. The Quorum had a prolonged and rather interesting conversation about the Five and the possibilities of conjoined power sets in both offensive and defensive situations. We workshopped a single mutant's powers, using Magneto as their point of reference, and how that mutant's power could integrate with others, and, limiting ourselves to 3 or fewer complementary mutants, we came up with roughly 40 useful combinations in military scenarios. 28 offensive, 12 defensive. This, we all agree, is worth further study, and I've created a list of necessary resources to move forward. Additionally, Bishop has volunteered to preside over our first Mutant War College. As stated above, this plan has our highest recommendation. Also attached are the Magneto combinations for the Council to review. Sadly, the combinations are not included in the issue. So, the next day, on Krakoa, Exodus is talking with some of the children, asking if they're afraid, telling them a story, and telling them what happened the previous day. The Gotati arrived, and Magic and Gorgon came to him, basically, hey, we have incoming. It's an incursion of some type. And Gorgon, and when Magneto asks where Cyclops is, Gorgon explains that the attack originated from the moon and they're using it as a staging area. And he's on the moon where he should, in the front line where he should be. Magic explains to Magneto that the Cuckoos are spider in a defensive web, and she was hoping that she could leave the island in capable hands. And then she asks if Magneto feels like getting his hands dirty. He is, and decides that he'll even dress for the occasion, wearing his old costume. And so Magneto goes after takes the fight to the Gotati, using balls of iron, meeting up with one of the Cuckoos and getting in contact with Sage via one of the others. And then further on, Sage explains that she sees temporary control of 2 totally above-board weather satellites and quite a few military ones that are not above board, and retasks them for observation. What she's learned is that the Gotati are attacking across the planet, and it looks like the counteroffensive on the moon is limiting their strike. Black Tom is holding his own with the island-wide defenses, and they've begun to push back. Iceman is helping storm to the north, and Magma has been located by one of the Cuckoos just a mile southwest of Sage's position. Turns out that Magma and Magneto have discussed a plan. Using basically a volcanic eruption to take out the one of the Gotati ships. And as any volcano on Krakoa is a natural thing, and therefore any eruption is Krakoa is doing, it's explained that this is actually one that's a volcano not linked to Krakoa that's actually underwater. And so Magneto explains that does ask Magma to not get too carried away, as they'd like to avoid an ecological disaster. Magma doesn't make any promises because she's very excited about the possibilities, though apparently so is Magneto. They then get in touch. Iceman then get, or Magneto then gets in touch with Iceman, as apparently the plan involved both Magma and Iceman. The plan is that Magma causes the eruption, basically bringing 20 tons of liquid iron to the surface. And so Iceman's part of the plan is to cool it down. He says it's not a problem, it may be a bit brittle. And Magneto then says, whatever would he do with broken metal with sharp edges? Master the Gotati with them, apparently. Finding the leader of the attack, who has just apparently killed Toad. Though why Toad has reverted back to wearing his old costume is beyond me, but, well, I mean, it's really the only costume he's ever really had, so. But apparently, the war leader's pet has been killed by Magneto's broken pieces of iron. And so Magneto speaks with the war leader and says, order your troops to leave the island and never return, and you'll save them and yourself. However, the war leader says, yeah, I've heard that one before, I'm the force, and he says he claims to be the force in the world, and he does not lose, and one seed in a little time, it'll meet. Basically, explaining that sapiens of Earth are their meat, are their food. However, he goes on to say that he's not going anywhere, and if Magneto wants to fight fate, if he wants us to be about blood, well, he can always play the butcher. And so Magneto drops a satellite on him. He survives that. And so Magneto drops another one, and another one, and another one. And Magneto asks the cuckoo that's with him to apologize to Sage for stealing her satellites, and also, go ahead and forward payments to the weather satellites to the governments. As for the military ones, well, Magneto says, you mean the ones we're not supposed to know about? If asked, we'll say we have no idea what they're talking about. And so, but there's one more request of Magneto. Activate the nearest gateway to the moon to put an end to the whole thing. And so we get back to Exodus, who is basically telling these children about the heroic deeds of Magneto that day. And, well, yeah, the issue ends with a shot of Magneto and some of the other X-Men on the moon fighting more of the Gotati. Nightcrawler, Iceman, Storm, Gambit, Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Wolverine are all there. And that is where the issue ends. And that's it for this video. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying, live long and rock hard.